Pensacola the other day, and they had a miserable performance, getting shut out in their first game. So he doesn't have a quarterback on his whole roster that can play in the NFL, and so certainly he needs Hoyer. My own thought, Jerry, is we would have to be freaking crazy to make that move. Number one, I'm not that huge an Andre Johnson fan, especially after his malcontent posture here in the off season. It's like you're trading for someone else's problem child. Goodness knows we have one problem child wide receiver already. So the other thing is, I don't care if you've made the decision that Manziel is your guy. You saw some of the shots Manziel took the other day. You saw the trainer checking him out. You saw him going head first on a scramble. We are one hit away from having Rex Grossman as our starting quarterback and the whole season down the tube if we trade Brian Hoyer. I think it would be insane to trade Brian Hoyer. I don't care if you're getting Jerry Rice in return. So I can't say that strongly enough because I just think it's crazy. I almost tweeted last night, is anyone really seriously considering trading Brian Hoyer? I don't care if it's Andre Johnson. I don't care who it's for. He's your guy going into this season. I think that Pettine tried to put that to rest today, as you said. And I did listen to your segment with John. So, I thought he had tried to put that to rest because Hooley, among other people, were floating this stuff yesterday, and I just think it's crazy.
It's everywhere. No. Nationally. And the plain dealer, everybody is like, they're reporting it like it's a very, very probable thing. I saw Bruce posted it on one of the groups on Facebook there, ESPN reporting that it's in the works, this Hoyer trade. I'm like, listen, even if Manziel is etched in stone, if you already built his statue, you put it out in front of the building, and we're going to start him, who in the hell wants Rex Grossman? I'd have rather kept Brandon Whedon as my backup quarterback than to trot Rex Grossman out there. Right? You want him as your third guy, and even John had some good points. I don't know how far you even go with that. You want him as the old head in the locker room to talk to your guys or something? Okay, I guess it's not my money I'm spending to pay him, but I don't actually want to see him on the football field. You know what I'm saying? And you're right.
Oh, no, it's absolutely nuts. I understand. Even if you, like you said, even if you've already made that call that Johnny's your guy, and, I hope to heck that has not happened.
I think it's not.
Yesterday's practice seemed to be one more indication that Hoyer is ahead. Hoyer is more prepared to win an NFL football game. Hoyer is the guy. He's got to be the guy. Johnny had a couple scrambles that looked good. And the thing that slays me, and we talked a little bit about this, relentless national media push, and it's led by Wilbon and Kornheiser on PTI, who take no opportunity to. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Let me jump in real quick before you go, because
Sure.
You just reminded me. Talking about Wilbon, while I was out of town, I caught a few minutes of PTI. It was not yesterday. It would have been Monday. And
when he went off on the organization,
reamed the Browns, and I literally turned it on right as he was starting his rant, and usually I like that guy. I'm like, do you even know what you're talking about, or are you just looking at false headlines and making a big deal about things that are not true? Because all he did was ranted and raved about completely false rumors, and I got ticked off. I'm glad you heard that too.
Yeah, I was ticked off at it, Wilbon. Normally, Wilbon has been so far the voice of reason, while Kornheiser rips the Browns organization for their handling of Johnny. And can they actually be thinking that they prefer Hoyer? He's so out of touch with what's going on in Cleveland and what's going on with the team and on the field. And, is it so hard to believe, Tony or Mike, that, this guy who fell to the 22nd pick in the first round, a lot of people think will never play quarterback in the NFL, might not be as ready to play an NFL football game in September or August as the guy who sat behind and learned at the feet of Tom Brady for 4 seasons. I mean, is that so illogical that you can't wrap your head around it? Or are you just looking for sound bites and ratings and hits and controversy to
hear
make
Wilbon?
the program seem edgy?
Wilbon mentioned Brady, what you're talking about there. He said he made it seem like the Browns held a press conference and called Brian Hoyer Tom Brady 2.0.
Right, and I did see that Pablo Torres. At the end of the show, Pablo Torres did correct him and say, "Hey, man, that was Joe Thomas in an interview making an off-the-cuff comment, not somebody from the front office saying that he reminds us of Tom Brady, for heaven's sake." But to me, it was just these guys, this relentless effort to pronounce Johnny Manziel the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns against all logic and against all front office statements. And when the front office says something that goes against your preferred narrative of Johnny Manziel the starter, then you rip the organization for not knowing what they're doing.
And I think it's the opposite. I think you got to give them credit.
Any other team, any other situation like this, where a coach and a front office decided to sit the rookie behind the veteran and let him learn at the heel of the veteran, and would be considered a prudent and wise and thoughtful course of action by the organization, except when it's the Browns, and then you rip the organization because you want to see Johnny running around on the opener in Pittsburgh. It's purely selfish reasons. You like Johnny. You think Johnny's compelling. You think Johnny's interesting. Therefore, he has to be the starter of the Cleveland Browns. And if the Cleveland Browns aren't going to make him the starter, then clearly they don't know what they're doing. That's the national narrative, and it makes me ill.
It does to me too. I'm glad you caught that Monday because I didn't even catch the end of the show because I changed it during the commercial break because I'm like, you know what? I'm supposed to be getting away for a few days, not supposed to get my blood pressure all up. But I got really hot about that. And listen, by the way, Coach Pettin, I got the direct quotes from him here that I was talking to earlier. I loved his answer to the story that the Browns are actively trying to trade Brian Hoyer. Story is the good word to use. He said, "I think I really set this straight yesterday," and he did. He made it clear that is not in their plans at all here. And again, just. I've got to say, for all the talk of what you just said, I go the opposite of what the national media is doing. And I know the Manziel fans aren't going to like to hear this, but I think Mike Pettin deserves some respect as the head coach because we saw Chud last year get run over by the Joe Banner train. And I got to tell you that Mike Pettin, he is like, damn this, I'm going to pick my quarterback. You're not going to pick my quarterback. Jimmy's not going to pick my quarterback. Nobody else is going to pick our quarterback but me and my coaches. And I don't care what your story says today. I'm telling you that nothing has changed, and yet you keep coming at me. And I don't like Bud Shaw much, but I like what he wrote today about it. He said, just announce it and give it to Hoyer and get it over with already so that nobody has to deal with these questions every day and you can actually just start getting ready for the season. Because really, with the exception of the people that just go, oh, damn the torpedoes, throw Manziel out there, he's just going to run us to a Super Bowl with his golden shoes, everybody else is like, hey, let's do this the right way. And I'm telling you, man. But I think Mike
tap the brakes a little bit. Yeah,
right. Pettin deserves credit for sticking tough.
So the other thing that came out yesterday that I thought was a point worth making is that you really don't have a lot of choice in naming your starting quarterback. It has to be Hoyer because if it's Manziel,
you don't go back.
Then you can't go backwards. Yeah,
nope.
you can at some point. As soon as you sit Manziel down after they're 0-4 or whatever, and put Hoyer back in the starting job, then you've demonstrated your lack of confidence in Johnny. Then you've already, expressed your doubts about him and whether he can do it not only now but ever. And so I just think it really puts you in an awkward position if you anoint him the starter week one, and then at some point in time have to make an adjustment or have to, take a step back later on, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 games into the season and say, hey, wow, maybe we threw him into the wolves a little bit too soon and go backwards. Then you've tainted him as a prospect now or ever.
And the other thing is just what you just said. The other way that could go is if he gets banged up. All I'm saying is quarterbacks get hurt. I'm not talking about losing him for the season. Let's say you decide to go with the kid and he gets banged up in week 1 or 2 and he has to miss a couple weeks. Hoyer comes in and runs things pretty well and wins a couple of games. Now you're right back where you started again, because now you've got a full-blown in-season quarterback controversy, because you've got the guy who didn't do anything to lose the job coming in and continuing to lead the team. Meanwhile, the kid that got the job missed his opportunity. Do you put him back in at the expense of the guy who's been doing it? So I just think, like you said, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle once you go in that direction. And that, too, is another reason why I think, and I listen to what they say. And unless I am the worst reader of people ever, and I don't think I am, everything that the Browns are doing is telling me that this is status quo. Hoyer's going to start. Manziel's going to dip in with the ones. He's going to get some experience. He's going to get ready and wait for his opportunity, and we'll decide if that comes at the bye week or if that comes in the offseason or what. I mean, I think you're seeing the same thing I am. It's not because I do want him to be the quarterback, but everything the Browns are doing tells me that that's the plan all along, and that everybody else just is not liking the way they're going about their plan.
Well, that's right. And I think that part of it, even just leading up to this coming Monday night, is ESPN, who wants nothing more than to have RG3 versus Johnny Manziel to pump ratings. And to be able to run their promos. And I'm sure that they've been leaning on Jimmy Haslam and whoever else. I mean, ESPN does this. They have a narrative that they want, and clearly what they want is to have this matchup of the two big names. And who the heck is Brian Hoyer? And I can't even believe you guys are thinking about starting him. So, yeah, I agree with Charles. That I think, just like you and for everybody else, sure, we want to see Johnny take some snaps with the first team. And we want to see how he does. We want to evaluate his performance. And the whole idea of what Pettin has already said all along is that, the plan has been to split time with the two of them and to let them both get snaps with the first team. And we're going to make our decision probably prior to the third exhibition. All that is, experienced, savvy, prudent organizations do when they put the scrutiny on this situation is so heightened. I couldn't believe after the game Saturday night, SportsCenter ran about 35 minutes of wall-to-wall Johnny Manziel highlights. They showed two times over, once on ESPN2, then again on the main channel, the entire length of his post-game press conference.
Yep.
Twice through the highlights. The guys, studio commentary with, a couple of their NFL analysts going over the thing. I couldn't believe it. A full half hour to 35 minutes of Johnny on ESPN. I could not believe it.
They did the same thing on NFL Network, which was the feed that I was watching, but I got a kick out of the fact Sean O'Hara used to play. He used to play here, and he used to play for the Giants. He's one of their analysts. He jumped back. He jumped in when they cut back to him, and he goes, "But man, Brian Hoyer played great, man." I got to tell you, he didn't do anything to lose this job because he went out there and led this team, and he was one dropped pass or two drop passes away from 130 yards and a touchdown, and nobody talking about him losing the job, and everybody else was like, "Oh yeah, right, yeah." But he was the first one that goes, "Hey, you guys are forgetting about the actual starting quarterback who went out there and did pretty well." But I noticed that too. I get it; it's hype and it's ratings and all of that. But I mean, during our news break, it's of course an ESPN radio news break, and Johnny Manziel makes his first appearance on ESPN Monday, and I'm like, okay, because that's their narrative, and I get it. But and you heard what I was telling John. I was ticked that it wasn't even the end of the third quarter in that game the other night, and the story had already broken from the locker room that Manziel had replaced Hoyer as number one, and I'm like, they're still playing the game. How is this coming out of the locker room already? I'm pretty sure the coaches haven't gotten to the locker room yet. What is it? I got to kick out of that.
To take calls from reporters to give them scoops about what's going on with their.
They asked him about it. Did you see Pettin? He's on the podium, and they asked him about that, and he goes, Where'd that come from? Well, reports during the game. Well, it's the first I heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, and goodness knows that Dolo Loggins has been chastised and shut up, and he's embarrassed the organization enough already that what. And I liked how they sort of made light of it, that Benton put the